There are many things in life that one must come to terms to, and one of the things that is looming over my shoulder at the moment is turning 20 years old. In December, I will be turning 20 years old, which is something of a scary and mostly just, I guess, scary fact about my existence on this planet. I have done countless hours of thinking about what this specifically means in my lifespan and what it will specifically mean for those around me and how I will interact with those around me from that point forward. We always hear from older people that they feel that they don't change over time or they're still the same person they were. But, you know, everyone knows it. They've changed significantly over the course of their entire lifespan, and we just can choose to whether to accept it or not. And I definitely am a believer in accepting that change as something entirely not beneficial, but important to our growth as a human, especially because our psyches are so damaged over the course of the time we're on this earth. Whether you live an extremely comforted and relaxing lifestyle, you still are damaged in many ways or not, whether you believe it. So in order for you to understand the extent of what I'm actually like thinking of when I'm, pondering turning 20 years old, let me take you to what I theorize or what, me and my peers theorize on when consciousness actually begins. I am under the belief that consciousness begins around the age of 14 or 15. That is when a bunch of decisions, major decisions in your life are going to be made by yourself and not by those around you, your parents included, right? Your parents will still have a hold over everything you are doing, like essentially in school or, you know, basically until you turn 18. But consciousness of the mind and mental, fortitude begins at the age of 14 or 15. So mentally, we are at the current state that we are in age-wise, but consciously, I am about like uh 4 or 5 years old into my lifespan, and that's kind of an interesting concept to me. That most of the memories I've made in my entire life are not made before the age of 14 or 15, and instead are made through the 4 or 5 years I actually consider stuff in my lifetime to be impactful on how I think and act at this current moment. My philosophy in life has rapidly changed whether I like it or not, and I just can't do anything about it. I mean, I could shape it to be a different way, but I'd just be consciously opposed to the ideas that I'd be feeding my mind, and it just would not work. It would clash too hard. I don't think I personally would be able to feed my mind information that I just radically disagreed with. And what does this truly mean about someone turning a decade older? Well, not specifically a decade if consciousness begins, but like let's just take it in relative age for a second. A new decade is beginning in about 5 to 6 months for me. I don't even know. It's like, yeah, 5 to 6 months, right? And this new decade is going to be not essentially my childhood anymore. It's going to be a radical new way of thinking that I have never even thought of before. I am going to be starting internships, starting a career, starting a larger path for myself. And by the end of it, I will be 30 years old, which will eventually lead to me being a married guy, one, a guy with a full stable career, making as much money as I could possibly, make in with the skill sets I have by the end of that decade. It's going to be a lot of things happening in that decade, and I specifically don't know if most of us are ready to understand the concept of that because, only now it's starting to hit me super hard because, of course, it's very close to looming. And being 20 means something more than just, you know, it being a number. right? There's a idea now because I am no longer a teenager. After 19, there is no teen in my name anymore. Therefore, I am a different individual. I have to be treated differently because of the number associated with my body. So, essentially, we're going to be going down a journey that leaves us opposed to everything around us, sort of just clashing with everything we used to know, even though we're the same person. And when I'm always thinking about this and thinking about that teen turning into just a non concept, I always think about how just time has actually flown by. If I think about how fast the years of my high school career just flew by in an instant, it may have seemed monotonous in the classes I was sitting in, but 8 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day, depending on what clubs or activities you're in, and it actually just evaporates. It's just gone. And it's very strange to think about it that way because everyone does say time just simply flies when you're having fun or, just in general. But, when you're sitting in your bed staring at the ceiling, in pitch black dark and you're thinking about these concepts, it just seems more clearer to you. It just seems like the world revolves around you. And that's kind of the idea I always hammer around. The world does indeed revolve around you, in more ways than not. If you do not take the world into your own hands, the world will eat you up and spit you right out. I sound like a motivational speaker at one of those pyramid schemes, but it is essentially a truth about life, a truth about what I've experienced, what I've learned in life so far. I am by no means an authority on anything because I'm literally still a teenager at this moment. But hearing a teenager openly speak about these things is not uncommon. You hear all these people online all the time talking about how they're not ready to excel to the next stage in life, or they're not ready to take on the next step. But I feel like although I am extremely terrified and afraid of this concept, I am just open arms, ready to embrace it as a new type of endeavor I am willing to take on with full, focus and passion towards, because I know that if I improve my current standard of living in this decade of my life, I will be set for pretty much the rest of my life. So that's what I'm looking at here, you know, and let's just take a moment to think about how emotionally am I 20 years old, or am I younger, or am I older? Not just physically, because physically I will be 20 years old, but emotionally, some people age differently. And, that's a rather easy concept to understand. If you only consume a certain type of content throughout your life, right, you may be stunted or excel based on what that content was. And for me, I consider myself to be above average intelligence relative to what I deem intelligence to encompass, right? What I think I can bring to the table is very persuasive speaking. I took 4 years of public speaking, and I am very persuasive when I can really get my facts correct, and then I know who my audience is, because that's all part of the plan, right? That's all part of how you're supposed to, you know, convey your emotions and ideas to people. So I got that on lock, and that's going to take me very far in life. I can guarantee it. If you have a very aggressive tone and you're not very interesting to listen to, that's not important at all. You need to be aggressive, but to an extent that people will want to listen to you, and you know that they're listening to you because you know your audience. So yeah, I got that on lock. But what about mental health? Because that is the conversation that everyone is talking about these days. I think that mentally, the state of mind I'm in is fine for the time being. I don't think that ever per se that where most teens my age are in a state of just complete contentness with their life. That's just not a thing I believe to be just normal. I think being extremely content with your current situation, being content with this current standard of living you're in, being content with like an array of things in your life is just not common. No matter how wealthy, no matter how disparaged you are, it's just not very common. So I think I'm in the average area, right? Now, my capacity to think about this concept helps me a lot to come to terms with the ideas that flow through, the head of a teenage mind. The teenage mind is a um, very complicated and interesting psyche to look at because I remember in seventh grade, I had a teacher once who said that your mind will constantly drift over ideas that you find foreign and find maybe too rage-inducing or visceral for you to comprehend, and that's why they seem so open and so interesting to you. Like the idea of suicide, right? When you kill yourself, you're freeing yourself from the situation or ideas that you are being plagued by. And he said to me, or not to me, but to the class, right, that people love you, and whether you like it or not, or whether you know it or not, people do care about your situation. And, you know, that's a common theme that you find drifting around anyone who's ever worked in like suicide prevention. They'll tell you that you are loved and, you have a lot to live for in this world. There's so much there for you, right? I've never interacted with anyone in suicide prevention, but, through they hear the I guess Vine, the grapevine, right? You always see these teens posting online about their experience with thinking about stuff like this, their mental health. And I've always just thought of it as something, okay, this is a concept that we all go through, so it's not very important to me. But the more you think about it, the more it becomes a common concept for you to grasp onto and to think about as a a gateway to something greater sometimes. I think most of my philosophical beliefs and most of my ethical and moral beliefs have come from various places in my life. I am not too heavily influenced by family tradition because family tradition to me seems like a rather arbitrary way of understanding the world around you and instead just just harkens more standards of living that maybe you don't agree with, especially because my family were immigrants and I live in America now, and their standards don't really apply to American standards, and so I have to kind of shape my own way or under I the way I understand my ethnicity is that I'm American primarily and then my other race is secondary. Even though I am full bred that race, my primary ethnicity or whatever race is American because that is who I am. I am living a lifestyle of an American. I will forever live a lifestyle of American. I just cannot get away from it, and I like living as an American. I do not think I would like being something else. You know, whether you have a critique of American culture or not, or it doesn't matter to me. I like being an American, and I think it's my primary culture that I like to latch on to. I mean, I don't even speak the language of the country I came from, so it's not like I'm completely I can just pick and choose which culture to be a part of. I mean, I can act like I am part of the culture that I'm from, but it's not going to be the same as when I'm in American culture where I feel a lot more comfortable. And as you get older in American culture, right, you have I don't know if you become devoid of all reason, essentially, because that's the common theme I see in a lot of historical concepts is that older generations just become devoid of concepts that are new and can't understand it, therefore just keep living the lifestyle that they've always been living and then just eventually just sizzle out and just die not understanding the culture that they're a part of, which I literally would rather die than uh do, because I definitely, even if it looks cringe that an old guy is trying to be cool and hip, it just doesn't make sense why you wouldn't want to be just a part of the culture, because like that's how you become anti-climate change, or like pro Ronald Reagan, or it's very stupid to think about. But here's something interesting to think about. The idea of 20 years old being shaped by emotional trauma. Now, I am not one to have been shaped by emotional trauma, but I can argue that most of the population that is in lower income or have situations that give them emotional trauma in their lifestyle will shape the way they become, or will shape the way they act out in their 20s. And I can say firsthand that there are several experiences in my life that I will definitely be taking towards the future, because they are very important to my character. And character means a lot to me. There's no greater thing in this universe, or greater person in this entire planet, that I respect other than myself. That is not egocentric, I don't think. I think that if you respect yourself to the highest possible standard, you will see it, everything as clearly as you can, and you will not devalue your own standard of living so you can please. Well, actually, there's a flaws in my argument, because some people would rather dedicate their entire lives to suffering for the sake of others, and that's fine. That's a noble pursuit. But if you also want to live a lifestyle that suits you and you think you deserve this lifestyle, then by all means, the world does revolve around you. And I would rather live that way. The world does revolve around me, because I want to live a happy lifestyle. I want to be content. If I am helping other people at my own expense and I am unhappy, that is not a situation I want to be in. Therefore, if I'm happy primarily, then I can help people. Help yourself before you help people. Unless, of course, you like doing the opposite. But in my life, I live a relatively calm and collected lifestyle. I can leisurely do my homework, and watch TV and play video games whenever I want. I can basically wake up whenever I want as well, because my classes are not very participation based. So, interestingly enough, there's no reason why I wouldn't be content with my life at the moment. But there's always room for contention in that idea, because one, uh, this monotony that I go through is also a point of concern, because then you become too accustomed to being driven in a leisure lifestyle and you don't understand hardship the way other people do, and then therefore you can't understand their hardship in the way they do. Or maybe that, here, I'll give you an example. I fear working in food service because I do not want to hurt myself in the process, in terms of getting frying oil on my arm, or like burning myself. I don't want to feel pain or discomfort in any way, because I don't like it. And I think that's a pretty easy concept to understand. But people who are in food service, I respect greatly, but we don't tip them at all. If you go to a McDonald's drive-thru, tell me the last time you tipped your McDonald's drive-thru worker. It doesn't happen, because they don't deserve it, in your opinion. Because when's the last time you did it? If they deserved it, you would have done it. But go to a restaurant, and tipping is a fairly common concept, which I don't agree with. Because here's the thing. If you are a waiter, right, and you give excellent service, but the food sucks, I am obliged to tip you because you gave excellent service. That shouldn't be a thing. The food sucked. I'm not there for you. I'm there for the food. And it goes the other way too. If the food is amazing and the waiter just sucks and has a terrible attitude, I also don't want to tip high, which is a very stupid concept. And tipping in America is just absurd, in my honest opinion. I would rather give nothing than give anything because I, one, have no idea who it's going to. It could be split among the waiter's staff or the host. I don't know where it goes. If I had a choice, I would give it only to the chefs, only. But that's besides the point. My real point is that different lifestyles shape different ways, the way we interpret the way we should act throughout our 20s or throughout our lives in general. And for me, since I live a common collective lifestyle, I want to continue living that common collective lifestyle for the majority of my life. With a slight caveat, I want to understand hardship in the way that other people do, but I want to understand it through a lens that doesn't put myself in danger, or doesn't put myself at a disadvantage in life. Because if you didn't already know, I'm a history buff. I like history a lot, and I love learning about the world's expenses, right? Expenses being like conflicts, I should say. Polisario Front, Israel-Palestine, stuff like that, right? I love learning about that type of stuff. And learning about it from the comfort of my seat doesn't put me at a disadvantage. It doesn't damage me in any way. It may damage me mentally knowing that there's suffering of children, of people out there, but I'm not losing anything by learning about them. I'm just gaining information that I can use in either argument, I can use it in a conversation, I can bring it up, maybe get someone to donate sometimes. But what does this essentially mean for my initial impact of my state of mind in my 20s? If I continue to perpetuate this sort of information flowing to my head, I will indeed be an intellectual among most people. I mean, I'm not a guy who really sticks to academia as the way to go in order to join the intellectual conversation. I'm a guy who likes to get his information very leisurely and at his own will, right? Without having to read in depthly on like studies and like really wordy articles. I'm not that type of guy. So what I think is that I want to shape my attitude in my 20s in terms of intellect towards being a type of guy who understands concepts and is able to analyze them, not in a way to specifically tell others about the concepts. I want to be able to understand the concepts for myself and be able to come to terms with how they are at the current moment and understand what are the possible solutions for them, or what is the possible outcome for that solution in multiple ways. And again, this is specifically for myself, not for others, because before I even tell others about ideas, I need to be able to understand that idea to the relatively fullest extent that I can possibly do. And I say relatively because understanding a concept at its fullest or to your best ability is not always the case, because you find different passion for different ideas, and the amount of research you put into a topic is very different depending on how attached you are to that idea. Here's an example. I am very attached to the show K-On! I am very in-depthly I just have a vast knowledge on the production, on every character. I really have a strong attachment to the show, right? And compared that to a mainstream show like Shield Hero, right? Which I don't have a major attachment to, but I could rant about for a long time. Now, these I have a passion for in different specific like sort of, they're just different types of passions. And different types of passions leads to different types of research and different types of writing in general. And as a writer, a self-proclaimed amateur writer, uh, I think that my writing towards each of these pieces would be drastically different, but would be almost equally passionate if I were to speak about them. Um, uh, Actually, I don't know about that statement. I think the writing would be drastically different, and the passion would also be drastically different, but in different ways. Maybe the tone of my voice, or in the ways that I'm portraying the shows to be. That sounds more right. Anyway, back to the conversation at hand. I am changing my outlook on life on a philosophical level because I want to, not because I'm turning 20. It's because I want to. This is a this is not essentially a new chance. Like, it's just an age pretty much. But this is an opportunity to essentially turn something that is a relatively okay situation into a pretty cool situation. I'm not going to say it's a great situation because I just want to have a cool situation. Because right now I'm in a good situation, but I'd rather be in a cool situation where I'm put in a place where I can have new experiences at no real tangible negatives, and then enjoy my life to the fullest on this planet. Because people that seek hardship on purpose just don't make sense to me. Like, we live in an age where convenience is the most important part of our lives, and then you seek to endanger convenience in so you can understand hardship or gain more hardship, which doesn't really make sense to me. I would much rather live my life living in leisure, because there is nothing I value more than being able to live contently for the rest of my life. And if I'm put in a position where, I mean, I've already gone over this. I don't even know why I have to go over this again. But yeah, I'm changing my philosophy in very small ways, I think. One being my idea on acquaintances and friendship, because I think that I've held this idea for a very long time that friends are people that you would invite to your wedding. And I'll get onto that later. But acquaintances are people like you say hi to in the hallway. Acquaintances are people that you just, can work on a group project together, or just, like, have a conversation with in general. But friends are people you would invite to your wedding and then continue to invite them to, if you have confidence to invite them to a family function without the family being like, "Oh yeah, that's totally not okay," then that is something, a feat underappreciated, because I think that's crazy sometimes. That is what a friend is to me. If I can invite them to my wedding, that is the peak of what they are. Um, and now I'm kind of having second thoughts on what that truly means, because there's some people that I wouldn't invite to my wedding, but I would invite them to very specific circumstances that mean a lot to me. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty cool thing to think about. But other than that, I'm not really big on radically changing my philosophy in any way just because I'm turning 20. I'm changing outlooks very slowly, as it tends to usually do, because, over time you just shift your curve a little bit here and there. It's not really that big of a deal. Anyway, uh I'm also thinking about dropping needless attachments in favor of things I'm actually passionate about. As of now, uh I'm very passionate about, you know, media in general and entertainment. I really love entertainment. I just cannot get enough of it. Some people love going to the beach, and that's their form of entertainment. I'm talking about digital entertainment. I am just a huge fan of the idea of just being able to have entertainment at your fingertips and be able to consume content constantly until you're just bored out of your mind of the content, but you're not bored out of your mind because it's always there. And I think that concept is just so just wacky. Just how we're able to just continuously, hours on end, continue content until we're just absolutely throwing up and then continue consuming. That is something I'm just amazed at. And I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about defending content that I actually love. I'm passionate about defending content that I hate, or attacking content that I hate. I guess that's the correct terminology, I guess. But yeah, that's something I'm really passionate about. I'm also passionate about um, keeping a strong and faithful attitude towards family, because that's all you got, baby. That's all you got. There's no greater force in this world that's going to limit you, or not limit, but push you, than people that are just blood related to you in, well, I guess in my situation, not all people's families are really close, and not all people's families are really ingrained into their lives, but mine is semi ingrained, and I tend to value that. I tend to value that attitude, because there is no reason for me not to excel with everything riding on my back, especially because I've got infinite support from my family, infinite opportunity to do whatever I want. Um, there's just no reason I shouldn't be doing what I want to be doing. So, yeah. Uh, I'm dropping needless attachments in favor of things I'm passionate about. And some of those needless attachments could be in the form of, I guess, I don't know how to explain this, but like, it always just comes and goes in the forms of ideas. You know, I can't really explain. Everyone has their own idea of what a needless attachment tends to be, but I think that I'm pretty set on whatever I'm doing right now. And there's nothing that I would probably regret or have regretted doing. Um, because, you know, I'm doing exactly what I know is going to be the best possible scenario for my future. All right, so we're rounding up the conversation here. Um, let me tell you something here. I live in a first world country in the middle class, so physical suffering isn't quite in the picture, but psychological suffering is always looming. I know we already talked about mental health, but hear me out for a quick second. America is just known for poor mental health. I've already covered this, and I think everyone, including myself, must continue an everlasting pursuit of emotional completion and complexity so that you can be content. And that is the theme of today's uh, talk, I guess. Contentness. Is that even a word? I feel like that's not a word, but the ability to be content. You need to have complexity of the mind and complexity of the soul in order to be content. Complexity in several ways. You need to be able to understand pain correctly. You need to be able to understand happiness correctly. You need to be able to understand a lot of concepts at once without losing track of what they truly mean. And then, and only then, you will be content. Notice how the only people that are content are old people, because they've had tons of experience to understand what that concept means, and tons of time and money, maybe money. I don't want to say money, but time and money is very important to understanding yourself and the world around you, and then coming to terms with letting go and dying. But I'm not going to die anytime soon. Maybe. Who knows? I could die at any minute. But 20 years old, goddamn. I'm going to be 20 years old. Anyone remember H2O? Back on Nickelodeon, I think. Yeah. I don't know if anyone remembers that show. But Big Time Rush. Damn. Gotta make it big time. Actually, that's actually a good segue into a conversation I also wanted to have is that I think that I am very similar to Kanye West. That's right. Kanye West and me are just one of the same. Why do I think this? You see, Kanye had a lot of hardship growing up in his life. I didn't have any hardship. So that's obviously not a similarity between us. What I do think we have in common, and which is why Can't Tell Me Nothing is my favorite Kanye song of all time, is that we just don't give a flying you know what about anything about what people tell us and what everyone thinks that we are. We don't care because we're built diff, essentially. And I find that message really, really heartfelt, and I find that message just something that I can latch onto for the rest of my life. Kanye has unironically changed my life. In the last few months and probably the year, I have listened to Kanye non-stop, just full on. Just I have a playlist called the Yay List, and in this Yay List, I will quite literally listen to it non-stop all day in the car when I'm playing games. Just shuffle, go, and it's songs that I just are only Kanye, and I'll just listen to it, just reiterating his message through all of his music. And you know what? That's gonna shape me in my 20s. I guarantee it. I will be telling you 5 years out on the line that Kanye actually did change my life. Can't tell me nothing. What can I say? And on a final note, actually, not a final note. I'm not done here. I've got more to say. I've got more to tell. Am I impressed with my life achievements so far? This is a cool idea because when you really think about it, our lives are filled with mild yet endearing achievements, depending on how you view achievements. I used to be on the swim team, and I used to brag about this one regional tournament or regional, I guess, championship that I was in, where I actually won first place, best backstroker in the district, which is out of like 32 schools, which I was pretty proud of. Backstroke is the one where you're on your back. In case you didn't know, I had a very fast backstroke time, and I flaunted this because it was very funny to me and ironic because I didn't think I deserved it at the time, even though my time was fairly better than the other person's time. But it's very interesting how we view achievements and how they will shape our attitude as well as we go into the next stage, because life achievements is a hard thing to think of. Like, do I deem that backstroke um that backstroke, I guess, set as one of the greatest achievements in my life? No, not even close. Not even close. But there are some things in life that you do deem a life achievement, and I like thinking about that. Like, do I really think about this as an achievement now? Like back then, sure, it was an achievement, but now I'm not too sure if I think of it as like a real great achievement in addition to my overall thinking process, my life. Yeah, it's just not that much. There's some things that I do take pride in though. Some awards that I do take pride in because they do impact my idea of myself, one, my idea or the idea of myself to others, two, which is important because the way others see you is the other part of your identity. If you watched Evangelion, you know exactly what that is. Um, and it's all good in the hood because as life goes on, I guess you get more achievements, and the more satisfied you get with those achievements, the more content you are. And again, that's the theme of the that's the name of the game. So yeah, that's gonna be it, I think. I am gonna be 20 years old. 20. Life is a monotony. Suck my balls.